I woke up from the coma and heard my daughter-in-law say, "As soon as the old woman dies, she's going straight into a nursing home." I pretended to still be unconscious. The next day, they came to pick me up at the hospital, but I was already far away, with my husband, my passport, and the letter that left them completely frozen. There are moments in life where everything changes in a second, where the person you thought you were disappears and someone completely different is born. For me, that moment arrived in the darkness of a hospital room, with the monotonous sound of machines and the smell of disinfectant clinging to my skin. My name is Caroline. I am 68 years old, and for 12 days I was trapped in a coma that, according to the doctors, could have killed me. A sudden stroke that left me lying on the floor of my own kitchen, surrounded by the pot roast I was cooking for Sunday dinner. Robert, my only son, found me hours later. Or so they told me when I finally woke up. But waking up was not like in the movies. I didn't open my eyes abruptly or sit up in bed asking for water. It was slow, confusing, like swimming to the surface from the bottom of a dark lake. First, I heard distant voices. Then I felt the weight of my own body. And finally, with an effort that seemed superhuman, I managed to slightly crack open my eyelids just enough to see the hallway light filtering in from under the door. I was alone in the room. Or so I thought. Then I heard her. The voice of Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, whispering urgently on the phone. She was standing by the window, her back to me, with that platinum blonde dyed hair that always seemed too artificial to me. She was wearing a burgundy silk blouse that I had given her myself for her last birthday. "No, honey, calm down," she said with that sweet voice she used when she wanted something. "The doctors said it could be any day now. It's been 12 days already. Her brain is very damaged." My heart, which had barely begun to beat normally, sped up. I tried to move, to say something, but my body wouldn't respond. It was like being locked inside myself. "Listen," Vanessa continued, and her voice lost all its sweetness. It became cold, calculating, like the blade of a knife. "As soon as the old woman dies, we sell the house. That's $800,000, Robert. $800,000. We can pay off all the debts, buy the condo in Miami we saw, and still have plenty left over for the business you want to start." Every word was a stab. "And if she doesn't die?" my son's voice asked from the other end. I barely recognized it. It sounded tired, resigned. "What if she wakes up?" Vanessa let out a short, humorless laugh. "Well, then we apply Plan B, my love. I already spoke to that lawyer your cousin recommended. If she's left with brain damage, we have her declared incompetent and take control of her assets anyway. And if by some miracle she wakes up fine—" She paused, and the blood in my veins turned to ice. "Well, you know, there are cheap nursing homes on the outskirts of Cleveland. They'll keep her for $3,500 a month, and we keep the house just the same. After all, she's lived her life." The vital signs monitor began beeping faster. Vanessa turned, startled, but I had already closed my eyes completely. I heard her heels approach the bed. I smelled her mint gum breath close to my face. "Mrs. Caroline?" she whispered. "Can you hear me?" I didn't move. I didn't breathe any deeper. I turned to stone. After what seemed like an eternity, I heard her walk away and leave the room. The door closed with a soft click. And there, in that self-imposed darkness, with my eyelids pressed tight and my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces, I made the most important decision of my life. I was not going to wake up. Not yet. First, I was going to listen, to observe, to understand exactly what kind of monsters I had raised. Because if I had learned anything in my 68 years, it was this: never underestimate a woman who has more to lose than her own life. And I had lost everything in that moment. The only thing I had left was my dignity. And that, I swear to you, no one was going to take from me. While I lay motionless in that hospital bed, pretending to be in a coma, my mind began to replay every moment that had led me there. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar I spent thinking I was building a future for my son. Robert was born when I was only 28. His father, Harold, abandoned us 6 months later. He disappeared one morning, taking the $1,500 we had saved and leaving me a note on the kitchen table. "I'm not ready to be a father. Forgive me." Simple as that, cruel as that. I was left alone in a small attic room in the Bronx, with a baby crying from hunger and a future that looked like a dead end. But I didn't give up. Never. I started by selling breakfast burritos in the mornings. I would wake up at 4 a.m. with Robert tied to my back in a woolen shawl my mother gave me before she died. I prepared 50 sausage and egg burritos, 50 bacon and cheese, 30 sweet cinnamon rolls. I sold them on the corner of Grand Central Parkway before dawn, when the workers were rushing to the subway. I earned between $30 and $45 a day. It wasn't much, but it was enough. In the afternoons, I cleaned houses, 3 houses, Monday through Friday. Swollen knees, hands cracked from the bleach, a back that creaked every time I stood up, but every time Robert hugged me and said, "I love you, Mommy." Every pang of pain was worth it. I enrolled him in the neighborhood public elementary school, then in the middle school. He was always a good student, diligent, responsible. All the teachers congratulated me. "Mrs. Caroline, your son has a future," they would tell me. And I would fill with pride. When Robert turned 18 and got into the state university to study business administration, I cried with happiness. We were poor, yes, but my son was going to be a professional. He was going to have what I never had. During those 4 years, I worked harder than ever. I no longer just sold burritos and cleaned houses. I also ironed other people's clothes on weekends. Robert needed books, transportation, food, and I gave him everything. Everything. I never dated anyone. I never bought new clothes. I never went to the movies or a fair. My entire life revolved around my son. He was my project, my reason for existing. When he graduated, I managed to save up $45,000. I was 40 then, and that $45,000 represented 8 years of savings. 8 years of saving every coin, denying myself every pleasure, eating grilled cheese sandwiches and cheap soup so my money would grow. I gave it all to him for the down payment on his first apartment. A small but decent place in Queens. "Mom, I promise I'll pay you back every penny," he swore to me with tears in his eyes. "You'll see, I'm going to succeed and give you everything you deserve." He never gave me back a single cent, but I didn't care. Seeing him settled with a job as a sales manager at a cell phone company was enough. 3 years later, he met Vanessa at an office party. She was pretty, I can't deny that. Tall, thin, with the kind of beauty that looked straight out of a magazine. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office and spoke of her dreams of owning her own spa. She came from a family in Newark who, as I later learned, had kicked her out of the house over problems that were never clear to me. From the first day I met her, something in my stomach twisted. It wasn't her appearance. It was her gaze, cold, calculating, as if she was assessing how much everything in my house was worthwhile drinking coffee in my living room. "Mrs. Cada," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What a lovely house you have. And this antique bookcase is beautiful. Is it mahogany?" "It belonged to my mother," I replied proudly. "It's over 60 years old." "It must be worth a fortune," she commented, running her fingers over the wood. Robert begged me to accept her. "Mom, she's different. She makes me happy. Give me a chance to be happy." And I, like the fool I was, said yes. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony that I paid for, $9,500 between the venue, the food, her dress, and his suit. Vanessa wanted an elegant wedding, and Robert had no savings because he confessed to me shamefacedly he had had some unforeseen credit card expenses. Don't worry, son, I told him, hugging him. That's what mothers are for. A year after the marriage, Robert lost his job. The company closed operations in the U.S. He fell into a terrible depression. Vanessa started pressuring him, complaining, threatening to leave him if he didn't get a job soon. "Mom," he called me one night, crying, "can we stay with you for a while? Just until I find something new. I swear it will be temporary." My house was modest but comfortable. A 2-story home in the Tudor neighborhood of Chicago that I had bought 15 years ago with a small inheritance a great-aunt left me. It had 3 bedrooms, a yard with roses, and a dining room that could fit the whole family. "Of course, my love," I told him without thinking. "This is your home." That while turned into 3 years. 3 years in which Vanessa took ownership of my home. She changed the curtains without asking me. She moved my furniture. She put her things in my closet because she needed more space. She invited her friends over, and they left everything a mess. And I cleaned up after them without saying a word. Robert found a job 8 months later, but they never talked about leaving, and I never dared to ask them to. I was afraid of losing my son, afraid of being left alone in that big house. Then 2 years ago, something wonderful happened. I met Edward. But that is a story that still hurts to remember, because when I finally found happiness, my own family forced me to destroy it. For 5 more days, I remained in that bed, pretending to be unconscious. 5 days that felt like an eternity, where every second was a battle against my own body that wanted to scream, cry, get up, and confront those 2 vipers I called family. But I remained still. Motionless. Learning. On the 2nd day, Vanessa arrived early, around 9 in the morning, when the hospital was just beginning its daily routine. I heard her heels tapping in the hallway before she entered. This time, she wasn't alone. "Look, Diane, I'm serious," she was telling someone. "Come in, she won't know anything." Another woman entered with her. From the sound of her voice, she was young. Maybe Vanessa's age, mid-30s. "Are you sure?" "I feel bad doing this," the so-called Diane said. "Oh, please, the old woman doesn't even notice. Look at her, she's practically dead." Those words. Practically dead. Pronounced with such coldness, as if talking about the weather. I felt the bed move. Vanessa was rummaging in the bedside table next to my head. I heard the sound of drawers opening. "See? She had her wallet here when they brought her in. It's a good thing Robert had the sense to take it home." The sound of a bag being opened. "Look, here are the house keys. And this is gold. My necklace. The necklace with the St. Christopher medal that my mother gave me when I turned 15. The only piece of real value I had." "Vanessa, you can't take that," Diane protested weakly. "Why not? When she dies, it'll be mine anyway. I'm just getting ahead of myself. Besides, I need to pawn it. We have to pay the credit card or they're going to sue us. We already owe $12,700. $12,700 in credit cards. I felt rage burning inside me, but I kept my face impassive. I didn't even move an eyelid. "And look," Vanessa continued, now with enthusiasm, "I'm going to show you the house on a video call. I already took pictures of everything for when we put it up for sale." I heard the sound of a phone being handled, a video call connecting. "Are you there? Perfect. Look, this is the hospital. Here's the old lady all stiff. Robert says if she survives, she'll be a vegetable anyway, so it doesn't matter." My own son. Robert, the boy I carried on my back while selling burritos. The young man I hugged, crying, when he graduated. That same son was waiting for me to die or become incapacitated to steal everything from me. "Okay, enough of this," Vanessa said. "Now come on, let's go home. There's nothing to do here anyway. The nurses already know I don't come in the afternoons because I have to work." A lie. Vanessa had stopped working a year and a half ago. She said she was too stressed and needed time to find herself. My $620 monthly pension helped maintain the house while she was finding herself. They left. And I stayed there, with my heart beating so fast that I feared the machines would betray my conscious state. But the worst came that same night. Around 11 o'clock, when the hospital was silent and I could only hear the distant murmur of the nurses at their station, Robert entered my room alone, my son, my only son. He sat in the chair next to my bed. I heard his heavy, tired breathing. For a moment, I thought maybe he had come to say goodbye, to tell me he loved me, to ask for forgiveness for everything. How naive I was. He took out his cell phone. He dialed a number. Mr. Harrison, good evening. I apologize for the time. Yes, I'm Robert Stevenson, Caroline Stevenson's son. Exactly, the lady with the stroke. Look, I need to ask you some urgent questions. A long pause as he listened. How long does it have to be before I can legally declare my mother incapacitated if she wakes up with brain damage? I see. And if she wakes up fine? Is there any way to... Another pause. Longer. I felt like I was drowning. I understand. Yes, she has a house in her name valued at approximately $780,000 according to the last property appraisal. No, she doesn't have a will. At least not that I know of. Exactly, I'm an only child. And how much would your services cost to handle all of this? Silence. Then a sigh. Perfect. $8,500 plus tax, no problem. I can advance it to you as soon as we sell. I mean, as soon as I sell the property. Yes, I understand it's technically still hers, but you understand the situation. The lady is already 68. Her pension is a pittance, barely $620. There's no point in keeping her if she's left with brain damage. She'd be more of a nuisance than anything else. A nuisance. That word echoed in my head like a gunshot. To my son, I was a nuisance, a burden, an obstacle between him and his inheritance. Look, Mr. Harrison, Robert continued, and his voice became harder, colder. I'll be honest with you. My wife and I have serious debts. We owe $12,700 in credit cards, plus $43,100 on a personal loan. If my mother wakes up and regains control of her things, we'll never get out of this hole. She was too controlling with her money. She never really wanted to help us. Lie after lie after lie. So we'll leave it at that. You start preparing the paperwork. If she doesn't wake up or wakes up poorly within a week, we proceed with legal incapacitation. And if she wakes up fine, well, we'll find another solution. There are cheap nursing homes where we can put her. They'll keep her for $3,500 a month. And we take control of the house. He hung up. He stayed sitting there for a few more minutes, in silence. Then I heard something I will never forget. I heard him cry. But he wasn't crying for me. He was crying for himself, for his situation, for his debts. I'm sorry, Mom, he finally whispered. But I can't do this anymore. Vanessa is right. You've lived enough. Now it's our turn. He stood up. I felt his lips brush my forehead in a cold, mechanical kiss. And he left. That night, when I was completely alone, I opened my eyes in the darkness. Tears streamed down my cheeks, soaking the pillow. I didn't make a sound. I didn't move more than to breathe. But in that moment, in that dark room that smelled of sickness and betrayal, a new Caroline was born. One who had nothing left to lose. One who was going to fight. On the third day of my performance, I met Lucy. She was a young nurse, about 32, with her hair pulled back in a high ponytail and honey-colored eyes that seemed to see beyond the obvious. She wore the hospital's mint-green scrubs and worn white sneakers that squeaked slightly against the floor. The first time she entered my room was during the afternoon shift. I had my eyes closed, as always, controlling my breathing, maintaining the perfect rhythm of someone in a coma. I had perfected the art of appearing absent. I felt her hands checking the IV drip, adjusting the sheets. But then she did something different. She stopped next to my bed and stood there, silent, for several seconds. "That's strange," she murmured to herself. She checked the vital signs monitor. I heard the sound of pages turning, probably my file. "Her vital signs improve when she's alone," she said in a low voice, as if thinking aloud. "But when her family arrives, her blood pressure rises, her heart rate accelerates." As if... She stopped abruptly. I felt her gaze fixed on me. "As if she's listening to them," she whispered. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to remain calm. I didn't move, not a muscle. Lucy left the room without saying anything else. But I knew she had seen something, and I was afraid. For the next few hours, I tried to convince myself that it had been my imagination, that this nurse didn't suspect anything, that everything was still going according to my plan. But that same night, around 11:30, when the hospital was steeped in that particular silence of the early morning, I heard the door open very carefully. Soft footsteps, a presence approaching my bed. Then I felt a warm hand take mine, and a gentle voice, barely a whisper, that said, "Ma'am, if you can hear me, if you are awake, even if you are pretending not to be, move your index finger, just a little. No one else is watching, just me. And I swear on my mother that I won't say anything that will put you in danger." The world stopped. My brain screamed not to do it, that it was a trap, that I would be discovered. But something in that woman's voice, something in her genuine tone, made me trust her. I moved my index finger, barely a millimeter. I felt Lucy hold her breath. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I knew it. I knew it." She squeezed my hand gently. "Ma'am, I don't know what's going on, but I've been working here for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of things. Your vital signs don't lie, you're conscious, and something tells me you have your reasons for pretending." I opened my eyes slowly. It was the first time in 3 days that I looked directly at someone. Lucy was leaning over me, her eyes bright with emotion and something else. Compassion. "Help," I whispered in a hoarse voice. "Please." Lucy looked towards the door, checking that no one was coming, and then looked back at me. "What do you need? Are you in danger?" Tears began to run down my face. I couldn't hold them back anymore. "My family," I said, my voice breaking. "They are waiting for me to die. They want to steal everything. My son. My own son." I couldn't continue. Sobbing choked me. Lucy hugged me, just like that. A stranger who became my salvation in that moment. She let me cry on her shoulder while stroking my hair like a daughter would. "It's okay, ma'am. Breathe. You're safe. I'm going to help you." "Why?" I asked her when I managed to calm down a bit. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Lucy sat on the edge of my bed and looked at me with deep sadness in her eyes. "Because 5 years ago, my grandmother went through something similar. She had a heart attack, and while she was in this same hospital, her youngest son, my Uncle Arthur, tried to get her to sign some papers to take her house. They told her they were medical authorizations. She signed because she trusted him." She wiped away a tear. "When she left the hospital, she had nothing left. My uncle had sold the house, taken her $32,000 in savings, and left her living in a small rented attic room out of pity. My grandmother died 2 years later. More from sadness than anything else. I never forgave myself for not being there to protect her." She took my hand again. "I won't let the same thing happen to you. Tell me what you need, and I'll help you. But you have to trust me." And that is how Lucy became my accomplice, my guardian angel. Over the next 2 days, she became my eyes and ears. She got my cell phone for me when Vanessa left it, forgotten at home. She brought me the charger hidden in her bag. She helped me make quick calls when no one else was around, keeping watch at the door. It was Lucy who told me what she had heard in the hallway, Vanessa talking to a friend about my house furniture. The antique mahogany bookcase can be sold for $12,000 easily. There's an antique dealer in Greenwich Village who pays well. And my mother-in-law's china dishes, those are collector's items. Each piece is worth about $350, and there are at least 30 pieces. It was Lucy who intercepted a phone conversation from Robert. "Yes, Mr. Harrison, I already spoke to the appraiser. The house can be sold for $780,000 if we sell it fast. It's a bargain because it's well located in Chicago's Tudor neighborhood. It would normally be worth more, but we urgently need liquidity." And it was Lucy who gave me the final push I needed. "Mrs. Caroline," she told me one night, when she was helping me exercise my legs to regain strength, "you don't owe them anything." "Absolutely nothing. I know he is your son, and it hurts, but a son who plans this is not a son. He is a stranger with your blood." "But he is all I have," I whispered, my voice broken. "No," she replied firmly. "You have yourself, your dignity, your life, and those 68 years you lived with effort and sacrifice. That is yours, and no one can take it from you. Not even him." That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. "Lucy," I told her, "I need you to help me with something else." "Something big." She looked at me with determination. "Tell me what you need." "I need to get out of here without anyone knowing, and I need to do it soon, before it's too late." Lucy nodded slowly. "Do you have somewhere to go? Do you have anyone who can help you?" I closed my eyes. An image came to my mind, a face I had tried to forget for the last 2 years, a man with light brown eyes and a sincere smile who had made me feel alive again. "Yes," I whispered. "I think so." "Then tell me his name," Lucy said, pulling out her cell phone, "and I'll call him." I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Edward Peterson. His number should be on my cell phone, in my favorites contacts. Lucy found the name and dialed it. She handed me the phone with trembling hands. I dialed. 3 rings. 4. I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then I heard his voice. "Hello?" And after 2 years of forced silence, 2 years of missing him every night, 2 years of regretting choosing my son's approval over my own happiness, I said, "Edward, it's me. It's Carrie. And I need you." Edward Peterson entered my life exactly 2 years and 4 months ago, in a place so common that it seemed impossible that something extraordinary would begin there. The farmer's market in Seattle, on a Saturday morning. I was buying tomatoes when we collided, literally. He was distracted looking at his shopping list, and I was in a hurry trying to reach the freshest avocados. My bag fell, the tomatoes rolled on the floor, and we both bent down at the same time to pick them up. Our hands touched over the same tomato. "Sorry, ma'am," he said with a smile that lit up his whole face. "I'm going like a chicken with its head cut off, looking everywhere but where I'm walking." I laughed. It had been so long since I had laughed like that, heartily. "Don't worry." "I'm not looking either. I'm rushing around like the devil is chasing me." We stood up at the same time. He was 71 then, but he looked strong, vital. White hair perfectly slicked back, light brown eyes that sparkled with intelligence, and large working hands. He was wearing a gray wool sweater and clean denim pants. He looked good, well cared for. "May I buy you a coffee?" he suddenly asked, as an apology for almost knocking you down. I should have said no. I should have made an excuse and continued on my way, but something in his eyes, something in his sincere smile, made me accept. We ended up at the corner coffee shop with 2 cups of cappuccino and a plate of blueberry muffins that he insisted on paying for. And we talked. God, how we talked. He told me he had been a widower for 3 years, that his wife, Beatrice, had died of cancer after 45 years of marriage. That he had 2 daughters who lived in Denver with their own families and visited him every 2 or 3 months. That he had been a high school teacher his whole life, teaching history and math. That he now lived on his $1,240 monthly pension and some savings he had carefully put aside. "I have a little house in Vermont," he told me, his eyes shining with excitement. "I bought it 15 years ago when I was still working. It's small, but it has a beautiful garden where Beatrice planted purple lilacs. I haven't been there since she died. I'm afraid to go alone and feel her absence in every corner." I told him my story. Not all of it, not that first time. But I did tell him about Robert, how I had raised him alone, my work selling burritos, the house I had bought with so much effort. "You are a very strong woman," he said, taking my hand across the table. "It shows in your eyes. In the way you talk about your life. Not many people can say they built something from nothing. That coffee turned into 2, then a walk through the market, then a goodbye with the promise to see each other the following week. And so, everything began. For 6 months, Edward and I saw each other every Saturday. We went to the market, walked through Central Park, visited small museums, ate hot dogs at street stands. He gave me flowers he bought at the subway station, always sunflowers because I once told him I liked them. I prepared meatloaf for him and took it to him in a container because he confessed he missed home cooking. There was nothing urgent in our relationship. There was no rush. It was a friendship that gradually became something deeper without us realizing it. One day, after 8 months of seeing each other, he kissed me. It was under a cherry blossom tree in Seattle, with the pink flowers falling on us like confetti. And in that kiss, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. "Caroline," he told me that afternoon, his voice trembling with emotion, "I know we are both older. I know life has already dealt us its blows. But I want to be with you. Not as friends. I want to wake up every morning knowing I can call you, see you, hug you. I want you to be my partner." I cried with happiness. At 66, I thought romantic love was something that was no longer for me, and there was this wonderful man asking me to build something together. "Yes," I replied. "Yes, I want to be with you." That night, I told Robert. I thought he would be happy for me. I thought he would understand that his mother also had the right to be happy. I was completely wrong. "A boyfriend," Robert said, with a tone I had never heard from him, mockery mixed with contempt. "Mom, please, you're 66. Don't you think you're a little old for that nonsense?" "It's not nonsense, son. Edward is a good man. He's educated, hard-working. He has his own house, his own income." "Oh, sure," Vanessa interrupted from the sofa without even looking up from her cell phone. "He probably wants your house, Carrie. That's how all lonely old men are. They look for a widow with property so they don't die in misery." "That's not true," I replied, feeling rage rise in my throat. "Edward has his own pension, his own house in Vermont." "A house in Vermont," Robert sneered. "How impressive. It's probably a small cabin. Mom, use your head. That man is taking advantage of you." "You don't know him. And we don't want to know him," Vanessa cut in. "Look, Carrie, be realistic. What will people think? Mrs. Caroline, 66, parading around with some old man all over the neighborhood? It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing." "I don't care what people think." "Well, you should care," Robert said, getting up from the sofa. His voice had become cold, threatening. "Because those people know us too. And I won't allow you to make a fool of yourself with some opportunistic old man while you live under this roof." "It is my roof," I replied, my voice trembling. "This is my house." The silence that followed was terrifying. "You know what, Mom?" Robert said after a moment that felt eternal. "You're right. It's your house. And if you want to fill it with lecherous old men, go ahead. But then we're leaving. And don't call me asking for help when that old man leaves you with nothing. Because I warned you." They went to their room, slamming the door. Vanessa shot me a look of satisfaction before following him. That night, I cried myself to sleep, and the next day, when Edward called me to invite me to breakfast, I told him I couldn't see him anymore. Why, Carrie? Did I do something wrong? No, Edward. You didn't do anything wrong, but my son doesn't accept our relationship, and I can't lose him. He's all I have. You have me, he said, his voice broken. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. And I hung up. For 2 years, I convinced myself that I had done the right thing, that a mother must sacrifice for her children, that romantic love at my age was a luxury I couldn't afford. But now, lying in that hospital bed, with the phone in my trembling ear and Edward's voice on the other end, I understood the magnitude of my mistake. Carrie, is that really you? My God, I thought. They told me you were in a coma. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm at General Hospital, Edward, and I need your help. Please, I need to get out of here before it's too late. I'm coming right now. No, I interrupted him. You can't just show up. Robert and Vanessa can't know I'm conscious. They're waiting for me to die so they can take my house. Everything. Silence on the other end. Then a deep sigh. Tell me what you need, my love. Anything. And there, with Lucy holding my hand and Edward listening attentively on the phone, we began to plan my escape. My second chance. My silent revenge. The next 2 days were the most intense of my life. While I lay motionless in that bed, pretending to be in a coma, Edward, Lucy, and I coordinated every detail of my escape as if we were spies in a movie. But before I could leave, I needed to know exactly what they were planning. I needed proof. I needed to understand the magnitude of the betrayal so I could protect myself legally. On the 4th day, Vanessa arrived earlier than usual. It was barely 8 in the morning. She was accompanied by a man I didn't know. By his way of speaking, educated but calculating, I knew immediately that he was the lawyer. Mr. Harrison, come in, Vanessa said with that sugary voice she used when she wanted to impress. Look, there she is, 12 days like this without moving. The doctors say that even if she wakes up, she will probably have severe brain damage. Did the doctors tell you that specifically? The lawyer asked. Well, not in those exact words, but it's understood. A 68-year-old woman with such a severe stroke. You know how these things are? I heard the sound of papers being manipulated, a chair being pulled up to my bed. Mrs. Stevenson, I understand the urgency, but I need to be clear with you and your husband. If Mrs. Caroline wakes up with her faculties intact, there is no legal way to take control of her properties without her consent. But if she wakes up with brain damage, then yes? Vanessa asked with an almost hopeful tone that made my stomach churn. In that case, your husband, as the only child, could request a declaration of incapacitation. The process takes between 3 and 6 months and requires constant medical evaluations. I can speed it up, but I cannot invent a diagnosis that does not exist. And how much would all that cost? My fees would be $8,500 plus tax. That includes all the legal paperwork, court appearances before the judge, and the necessary documentation for your husband to take control of the house and bank accounts. $8,500. To steal my life. Perfect, Vanessa said without hesitation. My husband is going to deposit an advance payment for you. Right, honey? Only then did I realize that Robert was also there. He hadn't said a single word. My son, my only son, was standing there, silent, allowing all of this to happen. Robert, right? The lawyer asked. I need you to sign these papers. They are authorizations for me to act on your behalf when the time comes. What if my mom wakes up fine? Robert asked in a voice so low I barely heard it. What if she fully recovers? The silence that followed was long, uncomfortable. Then, my son, the lawyer replied with a chilling tone, You will have to convince her to give you a power of attorney voluntarily. Or, he paused, we can explore other options. There are geriatric residences where, for patient safety reasons, family members can make certain administrative decisions. Once she is institutionalized, it would be simpler to manage her properties. Are you talking about putting her in a nursing home against her will? Robert asked. I didn't say that, the lawyer replied quickly. I am only mentioning options that other clients have explored. But for that, you would need 2 doctors to certify that she represents a danger to herself. And those opinions, well, they can be facilitated with the right contacts. Vanessa let out a nervous giggle. God, Mr. Harrison, it sounds like we're planning something bad. We just want to protect the family patrimony. Of course, Mrs. Stevenson, and that is exactly what we will do. But I need you both to understand that this process must be handled with great discretion. If anyone, any distant relative or nosy neighbor, were to report anything irregular, the whole process would become enormously complicated. There's no one else, Robert said. My mom doesn't have any living siblings. Her parents died years ago, and she doesn't have any close friends. She was always very solitary. A lie. She had friends from the market, neighbors she had coffee with, a group of ladies she went to church with on Sundays. But Robert and Vanessa had gradually taken care to distance me from all of them over the last 3 years. Perfect, the lawyer said. Then there will be no problems. Now, let me explain about the sale of the property. Once we have legal control, we can put it on the market immediately. I have a client who is looking for exactly that type of house in Chicago's Tudor neighborhood. He is willing to pay $780,000 in cash without intermediaries, closing the operation in less than a month. 780? Vanessa asked. Doesn't the house cost about $900,000? Technically, yes, according to the property appraisal. But in a quick sale, without the owner present to negotiate, it's normal to lose between 10 and 15% of the value. Furthermore, my client would pay in cash. That's worth gold these days. And of that $780,000, how much would you keep? Robert asked with a tone of distrust. My standard commission is 8%. That would be $62,400. Plus the $8,500 for the legal procedures. We are talking about you receiving approximately $700,000 net. $700,000. My house, my patrimony. The result of 40 years of work, of sleepless nights, of cracked hands and aching knees. All reduced to a figure they were already dividing mentally. And the furniture, Vanessa added. The house has valuable antique furniture, a mahogany bookcase worth about $12,000, collector's china dishes. You can sell that on your own, the lawyer interrupted. I only handle the property, but I recommend you do it quickly, before the neighbors start asking questions about where Mrs. Caroline is. It was at that moment that Lucy entered the room. Her entrance was perfectly synchronized, just as we had planned. She was carrying a tray with medications. Excuse me, she said in a professional voice. I need to check the patient and change the IV. Could you wait outside for a few minutes? Of course, Vanessa said, standing up. We're done here anyway. Mr. Harrison will wait for you at the coffee shop downstairs to sign the papers. The 3 of them left. As soon as the door closed, I opened my eyes. Lucy rushed towards me. Did you record everything? I whispered. She pulled out her cell phone from her scrub pocket. On the screen, the recording counter was still running. Almost 20 minutes of audio. Everything, she replied with a triumphant smile. Every word. God bless you, Lucy, I said with tears in my eyes. She put the cell phone away and began to check me for real in case someone decided to return. Mrs. Carey, Edward called me an hour ago. He has everything ready. The private ambulance, the medical papers signed by 2 certified doctors certifying that you are in your right mind, and the tickets. Everything. The tickets? To Vermont. By bus. They leave tomorrow at 10 in the morning from the South Terminal. He says he has his house ready to receive you. My heart beat faster. Tomorrow. Everything would be tomorrow. And the letter? I asked. I have it here, Lucy replied, pulling a manila envelope from her scrub pocket. I wrote it exactly as you dictated, 3 pages, with everything. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was my complete declaration. The conversations I had heard, the exact dates, the names of the lawyer and everyone involved. We also included screenshots of the statements for my supplementary credit card, the one I had given Robert only for emergencies, and that he had used to spend $8,900 in 6 months. Meals at expensive restaurants, designer clothes, even a $4,200 television that now hung in their bedroom. The letter ended with specific instructions. The house was being transferred to an irrevocable trust that I would administer. When I died, it would be donated to a foundation for elderly women in vulnerable situations. Robert would inherit nothing. Tomorrow at 2 p.m, I told Lucy. When they come for their usual visit, you hand them this letter, not a minute before. I need to have at least a 6-hour head start. Don't worry, ma'am, at 2 sharp, not a second sooner. That night, when I was alone in the room, I didn't pretend to be unconscious. I sat up in bed for the first time in 5 days. My whole body ached, but it was a pain that reminded me I was alive. I called Edward's number from Lucy's phone. Carrie? Get me out of here tomorrow, my love, I told him in a firm voice. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to keep pretending. Everything is ready. At 6 a.m? No, I interrupted him. Earlier, 5:30, please. What happened, Carrie? You're scaring me. My son signed a do not resuscitate order. If my heart stops, the doctors will let me die. Edward, they are going to let me die. Silence on the other end. Then a deep breath. I'll be there at 5:30 sharp, and I swear by everything sacred that no one will touch you. No one. I hung up and lay back down in the cold hospital bed, looking at the white ceiling. In less than 12 hours, my life would change forever. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I had hope. But before I could execute my escape, destiny had one last stab ready for me. One that almost made me change my mind. One that showed me with absolute clarity that the son I had raised no longer existed. That same night, around 10 o'clock, when the hospital was steeped in that heavy silence that only exists in the hallways of a place where people fight between life and death, Robert returned. He came alone. I heard his footsteps dragging down the hallway. Slow. Tired. He entered the room and closed the door carefully, as if not wanting to bother anyone. He sat in the chair next to my bed and for several minutes said nothing. He just breathed. A heavy, irregular breath, as if he had been crying. I kept my eyes closed, my body motionless, but my heart was beating so fast that I feared he could hear it. Mom, he finally whispered. His voice sounded broken, vulnerable, like when he was a child and had nightmares. I waited. I wanted to believe he had come to ask for forgiveness, that he had reconsidered. That the good son, the one I knew, the one who had hugged me, crying, when he graduated from college, still existed somewhere inside that 40-year-old man sitting next to my bed. I don't know if you can hear me, he continued. The doctors say probably not, that your brain is very damaged, but I need to tell you this anyway. He paused for a long time. I heard the sound of his hand rubbing his face. I'm tired, Mom. So tired. I'm 40 years old and I have nothing. Nothing that is really mine. I lost the apartment you helped me buy 3 years ago because I couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. The credit cards are maxed out. I owe $12,700 that I have no way to pay. Vanessa pressures me every day. She tells me I'm a failure, that her friend married a successful businessman while she was left with a good-for-nothing who can't even support her. His voice broke. And she's right, Mom. I am a failure. I lost my job a year and a half ago. Not the one from 3 years ago, I got that back, but I lost it again. And this time I didn't quit or get laid off. I was fired for unjustified absences, for being late, for low performance. I was fired like trash is fired. My heart sank. I didn't know any of that. Nothing. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. I told you I was going to work every day, but I was actually spending my time in parks, in cheap coffee shops, watching the hours pass until it was time to go home and pretend I'd had a normal day. Vanessa found out 6 months ago, and instead of supporting me, she threatened to leave me if I didn't get money from anywhere. My son, my little boy, suffering in silence while I cooked in my kitchen without knowing anything. Then we came up with the idea, he continued, and his voice changed. It became harsher. Your house, Mom, it's worth millions. Millions that you don't need. You live alone in that huge house. You have a pension you barely use. You don't travel. You don't treat yourself. You don't have a social life. You just exist. And we are drowning. I felt something inside me break. Vanessa said it would be easier if you weren't here. And at first I refused. I swear, Mom, at first I refused. But then I started thinking about it, calculating it. You're 68. Statistically, you have what, 10 years left? 15 at most? And in those 10 or 15 years, we'll continue to sink into debt, despair, misery. He stood up from the chair. I heard his footsteps approaching the window. And then you had the stroke. And the first thing I thought, God forgive me, the first thing I thought was, it's a sign. As if the universe was telling us it was time. That your time had come and our opportunity. Tears began to roll down my closed cheeks. I couldn't hold them back. But now you're here, in this bed, and I don't know what to think. Because one part of me, the part that is still your son, wants you to wake up, wants to hug you and ask for forgiveness and tell you we'll find another solution. But the other part, the part that is desperate and scared and angry at life. He fell silent. A long, horrible silence. That part wants nature to take its course. My heart stopped. The doctors said there's a 60% chance that if you wake up, you'll have permanent brain damage, that you'll need constant care. Vanessa says it would be better for everyone, even for you, if you didn't suffer like this. That if you don't wake up in the next few days, we should tell the doctors not to resuscitate you if your heart stops. He signed my death sentence. My own son had just signed my death sentence. I already signed the papers, Mom, he whispered. Yesterday, the do not resuscitate order. The doctor asked me 3 times if I was sure, and I told him yes. That you wouldn't want to live like this. That you were a dignified woman who would rather die than be a burden. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was choking. Forgive me, he finally said. Forgive me for being so weak. Forgive me for not being the son you deserved. Forgive me for this. I felt his lips touch my forehead. A cold kiss, mechanical, empty. I loved you, Mom. At some point, I loved you very much. And he left. I stayed there, in the darkness, with tears soaking the pillow and my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. For hours I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Just feel that deep pain, that immense emptiness of understanding that the child I had carried on my back, whom I had fed with my own sacrifice, whom I had protected from all harm, that child no longer existed. In his place was a stranger. A desperate man, yes. A weak man, too. But above all, a man capable of watching me die to save himself. Around 3 a.m, when the pain became unbearable, I dialed Edward's number with trembling hands. Carrie, what happened? Are you okay? No, I whispered, my voice broken. I'm not okay. But I need to get out of here tomorrow, Edward. I need to get out before it's too late. Everything is ready, my love. At 6 a.m. No, I interrupted him. Earlier. 5:30. Please. What happened, Carrie? You're scaring me. My son signed a do not resuscitate order. If my heart stops, the doctors will let me die. Edward, they are going to let me die. Silence on the other end. Then a deep breath. I'll be there at 5:30 sharp, and I swear to you by everything sacred that no one will touch you. No one. I hung up and curled up in that cold hospital bed. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be completely alone. Not physically, but in the soul. I had lost my son long before that stroke. I had lost him little by little without realizing it, while he smiled at me and called me Mommy and let me cook for him on Sundays. I had lost him the day he chose Vanessa over me, the day he let her disrespect me in my own home, the day he allowed them to treat me as a burden instead of the woman who gave him everything. And now, in this dark room, with the sound of machines marking every beat of my betrayed heart, I made a decision. I was no longer his mother. I no longer owed him anything, no love, no loyalty, no forgiveness. Starting tomorrow, Caroline Stevenson was going to live for herself. For the first time in 68 years, she was going to choose herself, and that choice began with a flight. Lucy's alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning. Not that we needed it. Neither of us had really slept. She arrived at my room at 5:10, dressed in her scrubs but with a backpack slung over her shoulder. Her face showed the tension of what we were about to do. "Ready, Mrs. Carey?" she whispered, locking the door. "Ready," I replied, although my voice trembled. Lucy pulled clothes out of her backpack. Gray sweatpants, a hooded sweatshirt, sneakers. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention. "I need you to get dressed quickly. Edward will be here in 15 minutes. I got out of bed. My legs trembled at first, after so many days without really using them. Lucy held my arm. "Take it easy, little by little." I got dressed with clumsy hands. Every movement was an effort, but the adrenaline kept me focused. Lucy helped me put on my sneakers, pulled my hair back into a ponytail, and put the hood up. "There, now you look like you're heading back home after visiting a relative." At 5:25, Lucy's phone vibrated. A text from Edward. "I'm in the parking garage. White ambulance, plates NYA1B2, waiting." "It's time," Lucy said, taking my hand. "Do you remember the plan?" "I remember." We left the room. The hallway was almost empty. Only one nurse at the control station focused on her paperwork. Lucy greeted her naturally. "I'm going to take Mrs. Garcia to the bathroom. I'll be back in 5 minutes." The nurse raised her hand without even looking at us. She was used to seeing Lucy help patients. We walked towards the elevator. Every step felt eternal. I expected at any moment someone to stop us, an alarm to sound, Robert or Vanessa to appear. The elevator arrived. Empty. We got in. Lucy pressed the basement button. "The ambulance parking is in the sub-basement too," she explained. "There's less security down there at this hour." The doors closed. The elevator descended. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. When the doors opened, the cold air of the parking garage hit my face. It smelled of gasoline and disinfectant. There were 3 ambulances parked. One of them had its lights on. "That's the one," Lucy said, pointing. The back door of the ambulance opened. Edward jumped out, and seeing him after 2 years almost made me cry. He was wearing a denim jacket, and his white hair was perfectly combed. His eyes filled with tears when he saw me. "Carrie," he whispered, running towards me. He hugged me. And in that embrace, all the pain, all the fear, all the betrayal of the last few days exploded. I cried on his shoulder while he held me as if I were made of glass. "There, my love, you're safe now. You're with me." "Forgive the interruption," Lucy said urgently, "but we need to move. The shift changes in 20 minutes, and there will be more staff." Edward helped me into the ambulance. Inside, there was a stretcher prepared with clean sheets. The driver, a man in his 50s with a mustache, greeted us with a nod. "Ma'am, welcome. I'm Mike, a certified paramedic, Mr. Edward paid me $2,200 for this private transfer. We are going straight to a private clinic in Seattle where 2 doctors will certify your state of health and mental capacity. Everything legal, everything documented." I got onto the stretcher, not because I needed to, but because it was part of the plan. If anyone saw the ambulance leave, it had to look like a normal transfer. Lucy got in with me. She took a folder from her backpack. "Here are all your medical documents from the hospital. Certified copies, your history, the stroke studies, everything. Also included is the copy of the audio recording from yesterday when your daughter-in-law and the lawyer talked in your room. I saved it on this USB." She handed me everything. Then she pulled out another envelope. "And this is the letter they will receive at 2 in the afternoon." I took it with trembling hands. 3 pages that contained my truth, my declaration, my liberation. "Lucy," I said, my voice breaking, "how can I ever repay you for everything you've done for me?" She smiled and squeezed my hand. "Mrs. Carey, my grandmother looked after me my entire childhood while my mom worked. She taught me to read, to cook. She took me to school. When I lost her because of an abusive son, I swore that if I ever had it in my power to help someone in her situation, I would. You are giving me the chance to fulfill that promise." She leaned in and kissed my forehead. "Now go. Be happy, and don't ever sacrifice yourself again for people who don't deserve you." She got out of the ambulance. Edward closed the back doors and got in front with Mike. The engine started, and so, at 5:37 in the morning on Thursday, March 15th, I escaped from the hospital. I escaped from my son. I escaped from the death they had planned for me. The ambulance drove through the still dark streets of Chicago. I was lying on the stretcher, looking at the ceiling, feeling every bump, every turn, every second that took me away from that life. 40 minutes later, we arrived at a private clinic in Seattle. Small, discreet, but clean and professional. 2 doctors were waiting for me. Dr. Smith, a neurologist, and Dr. Jones, a psychiatrist. Over the next 3 hours, they ran tests on me. Complete neurological evaluation, cognitive tests, psychological evaluation. I answered questions, solved puzzles, told my story. "Mrs. Caroline," Dr. Smith finally said, "your recovery from the stroke is exceptional. There is no evidence of permanent brain damage. Your memory, reasoning, and cognitive abilities are intact. You are in full possession of your mental faculties." He handed me an official document, sealed and signed, a medical certificate declaring my mental competence and my capacity to make decisions about my life and assets. Dr. Jones added another similar document. Between the 2, I had the legal protection I needed. Edward paid the doctor's fees, $1,580 in total. Money he had taken from his savings without thinking twice. "Now," he said, taking my hand, "let's go home." Not to my house in Chicago. That was no longer my home. That was a prison I had just escaped from. We headed to the South Bus Terminal. Edward had bought 2 tickets for Vermont, departing at 10 in the morning. First class, reclining seats, air conditioning. We arrived at the terminal at 9:15. We still had time. Edward took me to a restaurant inside the terminal. "You need to eat something. You look very thin." I ordered pancakes with bacon and a strong black coffee. It was the first real meal I'd had in almost 2 weeks. Every bite tasted like freedom. While we ate, Edward told me about his house in Vermont, about the garden with purple lilacs that his wife had planted, about the friendly neighbors, about the market 2 blocks away where they sold the best maple syrup in the region. "You're going to love it, Carrie. It's quiet, it's safe, and no one will find you there." At 5 minutes to 10, we boarded the bus. We sat together in the back. Edward put my head on his shoulder and covered me with a soft jacket. The bus started. And as we left Chicago, as I looked out the window at the streets I had traveled for 68 years, I thought about Robert. I thought about Vanessa. I thought about how at that precise moment they still believed I was unconscious in that hospital bed, unaware that their plan had collapsed. At 2 p.m, when they came for their routine visit, Lucy would hand them the letter, and then they would understand. They would understand that the old woman they wanted to kill, the mother they gave up for dead, the woman they considered a nuisance, that woman had won. I fell asleep on Edward's shoulder, with the movement of the bus rocking me like a lullaby, and for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully, because finally, after so long, I was going home, to my real home. It was exactly 2:15 p.m. when Vanessa and Robert entered room 407 of General Hospital. I know this because Lucy told me later, in detail, in a call she made to me that same night. According to her, Vanessa was dressed up as if she were going to a party. Pink satin blouse, tight white pants, high heels. Robert was quiet, looking tired, wearing the same clothes from the day before. "Where is she?" Vanessa asked when she saw the empty bed. "Where is she?" Lucy was standing next to the window, the manila envelope in her hands. "Mrs. Caroline Stevenson was discharged this morning at 5:30. The silence that followed was absolute. "What do you mean discharged?" Robert asked, his voice trembling. "She was in a coma." "The doctors said—" "The doctors were wrong," Lucy interrupted firmly. "Your mother woke up 5 days ago, completely conscious, completely lucid, and she decided to keep it a secret." Vanessa approached Lucy with her fists clenched. "That's impossible. Who authorized the discharge? We are the family. No one can take her out without our consent. Your mother is an elderly adult in full possession of her mental faculties. She doesn't need anyone's consent to leave. Here are the medical documents that certify it, signed by 2 independent specialists." Lucy extended the envelope to them. Robert took it with trembling hands and opened it. Inside were the medical certificates, but also something else. Something they didn't expect. My letter. Robert began to read aloud, his voice breaking with every word. "Robert and Vanessa, if you are reading this, it is because you have realized that I am gone, that I escaped, that I tricked you just as you planned to trick me. For 5 days, I lay in that bed, pretending to be unconscious, while I listened to you plan my death. Yes, my death. Because that is exactly what it was. A do not resuscitate order is a death sentence disguised as compassion. I heard every conversation, every plan, every word. Vanessa, I heard you say that as soon as the old woman died, you would sell my house for $800,000 to pay your debts and go to Miami. I heard you check my drawers, looking for deeds. I heard you evaluate my belongings as if they were merchandise at a flea market. Robert, I heard you talk to Mr. Harrison about declaring me incompetent. I heard you calculate how much his fees would cost. $8,500. Plus tax, to steal what took me 40 years to build. I heard you cry, not for me, but for your debts. And I heard you sign an order to let me die if my heart failed. I also discovered other things. Like the $800 or $900 you spent in 6 months on my supplementary credit card, the one I gave you only for emergencies. Here are the attached statements. Meals at expensive restaurants where you spent $320 in a single night. Designer clothes. A $4,200 television. What was the emergency, son? Your ego? Your vanity? Your inability to say no to your wife? And worst of all, I heard your confession last night, when you came alone and told me you were tired, that you were a failure, that I had lived enough and that it was your turn. Those words broke my heart in a way I never thought possible. Because I understood something I should have understood years ago. The son I raised, the good boy who loved his mother, That son died a long time ago. Perhaps when he met Vanessa. Perhaps before. I don't know. But what I do know is this. You are no longer my responsibility. The house in the Tudor neighborhood, the one you coveted so much, will never belong to you. This morning, with the help of a notary Edward hired, I transferred the property to an irrevocable trust. I am the sole administrator while I live, and when I die, the house will be donated entirely to the Hope House Foundation, which supports elderly women in vulnerable situations. My bank accounts have been closed. I opened new ones at a different bank with passwords you will never know. My $620 pension will be deposited into my new account starting next month. The attached documents include audio recording of your conversation with Mr. Harrison in my room, bank statements showing the fraudulent use of my credit card, medical certificates proving my full mental capacity, copy of the irrevocable trust, copy of the restraining order I filed this morning. Neither of you can approach me within 500 yards. If you do, you will go to jail. Robert, you were my whole world for 40 years. I gave you everything I had and much of what I didn't have. I worked until I destroyed my body so you could have what I never had. And in return, you gave me betrayal. I don't expect you to understand the pain you caused me. I don't think you are capable of understanding it. But I want you to know this. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I need peace. I need to close this chapter of my life and start a new one. But forgiving does not mean forgetting, and it definitely does not mean enabling. From today on, you no longer have a mother. I no longer have a son. We are two strangers who once shared blood and a last name, nothing more. Vanessa. I never felt affection for you, but I respected you because you were my son's wife. Now I see that you were exactly what my instinct told me from the first day. A calculating, cold, and manipulative woman who saw in my son someone weak she could control. And you succeeded. You turned him into someone unrecognizable. I hope the $780,000 you hoped to receive was worth it, because that was the price you put on my life. And you will never collect that price. Now you have two options. You can accept this situation with dignity and move on with your lives, building something for yourselves. Or you can try to look for me, harass me, or create legal problems. If you choose the second option, you should know that I have copies of all these documents with 3 different lawyers. One in Chicago, one in Seattle, and one in Dallas. If something happens to me, if I suffer an accident, if I die suspiciously, these documents will be immediately handed over to the authorities. I also recorded a full video explaining everything, which is deposited in a safe deposit box with specific instructions to open it if anything happens to me. Do not look for me. Do not call me. I no longer exist for you. Live with the consequences of your decisions. Sincerely, Caroline Stevenson, a woman who finally learned to choose herself. According to Lucy, when Robert finished reading, he was paralyzed. The letter fell from his hands to the floor. Vanessa picked it up and read the whole thing, her face changing color with every paragraph. "This is crazy," she finally whispered. "This crazy old woman is going to ruin us." "That crazy old woman," Lucy said in an icy voice, "is the bravest woman I have ever met. And you two are the most despicable garbage I have seen pass through this hospital. And I've seen a lot of things." Robert slumped into the chair where he had been sitting the night before. He began to cry, not with loud sobs, but with a silent, defeated weeping. "I lost her," he murmured over and over. "I lost my mom." "No," Lucy corrected him. "Your mom lost you. A long time ago. She just realized it." Vanessa took out her phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Harrison, I need you to come to the hospital urgently. We have a situation." "What do you mean you can't help us? Why not?" "A restraining order? Against whom?" "Against us?" "But—" Her face turned white. "I understand, thank you." She hung up and looked at Robert. The lawyer says the letter is legally valid, that she can do whatever she wants with her property, and that if we try anything, we could end up in jail for attempted asset fraud and elder abuse. So what do we do? Robert asked in a desperate voice. Vanessa put her phone in her bag and walked towards the door. I already know what I'm going to do. I'm leaving. I didn't marry you to live in poverty, Robert. I married you because you promised me a comfortable life. And not only did you fail to deliver, but now you don't even have the inheritance you assured me would come. Vanessa, please, no, it's over. I'm packing my things and going to my cousin's in Atlanta. Good luck with your miserable life. And she left. She left Robert sitting there, surrounded by the pieces of his destroyed life. Lucy told me he stayed staring at the letter on the floor for almost an hour. Then he picked it up, folded it carefully, and left the hospital walking like a zombie. That night, while I was in Vermont at Edward's house, drinking peppermint tea in the garden under the purple lilacs, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Mom? It was Robert. His voice sounded shattered. I didn't say anything. I just listened. I know I don't deserve you to listen to me. I know I don't have the right to call you. But I need you to know something. You were right. About everything. I'm a failure, a coward, a bad son, and I'm going to have to live the rest of my life knowing that the only person who truly loved me, I almost killed for money. Silence. Then a sob. I'm not asking for your forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, that I would give anything to go back in time and be different, be better. He hung up, and I stayed there, with the phone in my hand, looking at the stars over Vermont, feeling something strange in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but maybe, someday, it could be peace. 3 months have passed since that morning I escaped from the hospital. 3 months that feel like 3 years, like 3 different lives. Now I am sitting on Edward's porch in Vermont, with a cup of hot cocoa in my hands and the afternoon sun bathing the garden of purple lilacs. I can hear Edward in the kitchen, humming a Frank Sinatra song while preparing dinner. It smells of beef stew, freshly baked bread, home. This small 2-bedroom house became my sanctuary. It has shingled walls painted ochre, red pine floors that creak softly when you walk, and large windows that let in light and air. The garden that Edward's wife planted years ago is now full of life. Lilacs, petunias, herbs. I have added my own plants. Basil, cilantro, a small bush of cherry tomatoes. The first week was difficult. I couldn't sleep. Every noise startled me. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, thinking it was Robert, that he was coming to find me, that he had somehow found this address. But Edward was patient. He hugged me when I cried. He let me talk for hours about my pain, my guilt, my confusion. He never judged me. He never said, "I told you so." A mother's love never completely dies, Carrie, he told me one night as we looked at the stars from this same porch. You can set boundaries, you can protect yourself, you can walk away. But that love will always be there, like a scar that no longer hurts but remembers. He was right. In the second week, Lucy called me to tell me the latest news. Vanessa had left Robert just as she threatened. She went to Atlanta with her cousin and, according to rumors, was already dating another man, an engineer with money. She didn't waste any time. Robert had to leave my house. Without my pension helping him, without Vanessa's income, he couldn't pay the utilities. The electricity was cut off. Then the water. Neighbors began to complain about the neglect. In the end, a judge ordered him to vacate the property for not being the legal owner. The last I heard was that he was living in a rented room in New Jersey, working as a food delivery driver for an app, earning barely $40 or $50 a day, pedaling a bicycle on the streets he once drove on in a car. When Lucy told me that, she waited for my reaction. I think she thought I would be happy, that I would feel satisfaction for his suffering. But I didn't feel any of that, only sadness. "Are you okay, Mrs. Carey?" she asked me. "Yes, honey, I'm okay. It's just that he's still my son. And even though he's no longer a part of my life, I can't be happy about his pain." "That makes you a better person than him," Lucy replied softly. A month after being in Vermont, Edward proposed marriage to me. It was a simple afternoon, without grandiosity. We were watering the plants together when he suddenly knelt in front of me, his knees creaking with age, and pulled a simple white gold ring from his pocket. "Caroline Stevenson," he said, his eyes shining with emotion, "we have already wasted too much time. We have already lived too many sorrows. Marry me. Let me spend the time we have left with you, whether it's a lot or a little, but let it be together." I cried. Of course I cried. But this time they were tears of pure happiness. "Yes," I replied. 1,000 times yes. We got married 2 weeks later at the courthouse in Vermont, a small, intimate ceremony. Our witnesses were 2 of Edward's neighbors who became my friends, Mr. Bill, a 75-year-old man who sells bread at the market, and Mrs. Ruth, a 70-year-old woman who makes the best apple pies I've ever tasted, and Lucy. She traveled from Chicago especially to be present. She was my maid of honor. I wore a simple ivory dress that we bought at the market for $85. Edward wore his only gray suit, the same one he wore at his first wedding 48 years ago. It didn't matter. It was the happiest day of my life. After the ceremony, we celebrated at the house with apple pie that Mrs. Ruth made, and a roast chicken and mashed potatoes that I prepared with my own hands. We ate, laughed, danced to the sound of a jazz band that Mr. Bill hired as a gift. That night, lying next to Edward in our matrimonial bed, looking at the ceiling of wooden beams, I asked him, "Do you think I'm a bad person for abandoning my son?" Edward took my hand in the darkness. "You didn't abandon your son, Carrie. Your son abandoned you first, many years before that hospital. You just made the decision to stop being his lifesaver when he was trying to drag you down. But I'm still his mother, and he is still your son. That will never change. But being a mother doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It means loving, yes, but it also means teaching. And sometimes the best lesson is to let people face the consequences of their decisions." He was right, as always. 2 months after being in Vermont, I found a new purpose. Mrs. Ruth invited me to join a group of elderly women who met every Tuesday at the community center. The Silver Warriors, they called themselves. There were 12 women between 60 and 78, all with similar stories. Widows, abandoned, betrayed, but survivors. We started making crafts to sell at the market. I taught them to make rag dolls using fabric scraps. Others taught embroidery, knitting, painting on wood. With what we earned, we helped older women in the community who were in difficult situations. But I also started teaching traditional cooking classes, first in person in the community kitchen, then with the help of Mrs. Ruth's granddaughter who studies communications. We started recording videos. Carrie's Kitchen, we named the channel. We uploaded recipes for pies, casseroles, roasts, cookies. I told the stories behind each dish, the secrets my mother taught me, the techniques I learned in my years selling burritos. The channel grew, slow but steady. First 100 subscribers, then 1,000. Now we have 47,000 followers. It's not much compared to other channels, but for me, it's the whole world. Because every comment I read says things like, "My grandmother cooked like this. This recipe made me cry with nostalgia. Thank you for keeping our tradition alive." And some months we earn up to $850 from views and advertising. Money that I add to my pension and that allows me to live with dignity without depending completely on Edward. 3 weeks ago, I received a message on Instagram. It was from a young woman, perhaps 30 years old. "Mrs. Carey, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to tell you that your channel saved my relationship with my grandmother. She is 72, and after my grandfather died, she fell into a terrible depression. She didn't want to cook, she didn't want to go out, she didn't want anything. One day I put on one of your videos, and something in her gaze changed. Now we cook your recipes together every Sunday, and my grandmother is smiling again. Thank you for giving me back my grandmother. I cried reading that message, because I understood something. My life didn't end when I escaped from that hospital. My life began. Yesterday, exactly 3 months after my escape, my phone rang. It was an unknown number from Chicago. I answered cautiously. Mom? Robert. Again. This time I didn't hang up. I just waited. I know I shouldn't call you. I know I have a restraining order, but I needed to tell you something. His voice sounded different, calmer, less desperate. I got a real job in a warehouse. It doesn't pay much, $720 every 2 weeks, but it's honest. I have a small but clean room. I'm going to therapy. A psychologist at the health center is seeing me for free. And I'm trying to be a better person. Silence. I'm not calling to ask you for anything. I'm not calling for you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that what you did, even though it hurt me, even though it destroyed me at the time, it was the right thing to do. It was the only way I was going to hit rock bottom, the only way I was going to wake up. He swallowed. I was a horrible son, a horrible human being, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to compensate for that. Not with you, because I know you don't want me in your life anymore, but with the world. By being better, by doing better. My voice came out shaky when I finally spoke. I'm glad you're doing well, Robert, truly. Are you okay, Mom? Are you happy? I looked around, the garden with its lilacs, the house that was now my home. Edward in the kitchen preparing dinner. My new quiet life, full of purpose. Yes, son, I'm happy. For the first time in many years, I am completely happy. I heard a relieved sigh from the other end. I'm glad. You deserve it. You always deserved it. A long pause. Do you think someday in the distant future, we could talk again? Not like before. I know that's lost forever. But maybe, as two people who respect each other, who wish each other the best. I thought about my answer for several seconds. Maybe, Robert, someday, when we have both healed, when you have demonstrated, not with words but with actions, that you truly changed. Maybe then we can have a coffee and talk like two adults. Thank you, Mom. That's more than I deserve. Take care, son. You too, Mom. And I love you, even if I don't have the right to say it anymore. I hung up and stared at the phone for a long time. Edward came out onto the porch, sat beside me, and hugged me. Are you okay? Yes, I replied, and it was true. I'm okay. Because I understood something important. Forgiving does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean allowing yourself to be hurt again. It doesn't mean going back to who you were before. Forgiving means letting go of the weight. It means stopping carrying the poison of anger. It means choosing your own peace over the punishment of the other. Someday, perhaps in 1, 2, or 5 years, I will be able to see Robert again. Maybe we can have that coffee. Maybe we can build a new relationship, a different one, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. Or maybe not. Maybe this is all we will have, sporadic calls, brief conversations, a distant but real affection. And that's okay. Both options are okay, because I no longer live waiting for my son to complete me. I no longer live defined by my role as a self-sacrificing mother. I no longer measure my worth by how much I can give until there is nothing left of me. Now, I live for myself, for Edward, for my friends in the group, for the thousands of people who watch my videos and find a little piece of home in them. I am 68 years old, and I finally learned the most important lesson of all. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to choose yourself. It is never too late to say enough and build the life you deserve. Last night, while we were having dinner on the porch under the stars, Edward took my hand and said, "You know what is the most beautiful thing about all this, Carrie? That we both thought our lives were already over, that the best had already passed. And it turns out that the most beautiful part was just beginning." He is right. This morning I woke up with the sun coming through the window, the chirping of birds, and the smell of coffee that Edward was brewing. I got up without rushing, put on my favorite cotton robe, and went out to the garden to water the plants. And as the water fell on the lilacs, I thought of something my mother told me many years ago, when I was just a little girl. "Honey, lilacs are like strong women. You can prune them, you can neglect them, you can give them up for dead, but if they have strong roots, they always bloom again. Always." I bloomed again. At 68, after a stroke, after being betrayed by my own blood, after having to escape in an ambulance in the early morning, I bloomed. And if I could do it, you can too. Because it is never, ever too late to choose the life you deserve, to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away from those who hurt you, even if they are your own family. Your life belongs to you, your dignity belongs to you, your peace belongs to you, and no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take it from you. Final pages. Today is Saturday. Edward and I went to the market early, as we do every weekend. We bought tomatoes, avocados, fresh peppers. Mrs. Ruth saved us the best apple pies. Mr. Bill gave us freshly baked cinnamon rolls. In the afternoon, I have cooking class. We are going to make traditional beef stew. I already have everything ready: the beef, the vegetables, the spices, and this time I'm going to tell my mother's story, how she taught me this recipe when I was only 10 years old. Tomorrow, Sunday, I will go to church. Not because I am particularly religious, but because I like the community. I like sitting among my friends, singing the hymns, feeling that I belong to something bigger than myself. And on Monday, we start the embroidery workshop with the Silver Warriors. We are going to make tablecloths to sell at the town fair next month. This is my life now, simple, quiet, full of purpose and true love. And if I could go back to that moment in the hospital when I heard Vanessa plan my death, and someone asked me, "Was it worth it? All this pain, all this betrayal, was it worth it?" My answer would be yes, because that pain taught me something I would never have learned otherwise. That love for others should never cost you your self-love. That being a good person doesn't mean being a doormat. That you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. And that true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. Your dignity, your peace, your right to be happy. No one can steal that from you, unless you allow them to. I no longer allow it, and I hope you don't either. Because life is too short to live it on your knees.